The alien queen floated within the observation chamber, her massive, insectoid eyes locked onto the grotesque scene unfolding on the human homeworld. Her bioluminescent tendrils quivered in sheer disbelief, her mandibles clicking nervously. She had seen horrors before, entire civilizations raze, empires crumbling under the weight of war, but nothing had prepared her for this. The screen displayed a bustling human city, thick with pollution and neon advertisements. Massive glass buildings stretched into the sky, but her attention was fixed on the grotesque spectacle at street level. A long line of humans, some laughing, some chatting casually, stood outside a glowing red sign that read, Galactic Grill, Fresh Zelter Burgers. Her breath hitched. Zelter? No, it couldn't be. She zoomed in, her translucent fingers trembling over the interface. The image sharpened, revealing metal kitchens behind the counter, steaming griddles and monstrous creatures, Zelter, the apex predators of the galaxy, being sliced, grilled, and assembled between pieces of bread. Their once feared, razor-lined mouths now chewed helplessly in the throes of death, their luminous, acid-dripping talons twitching uselessly as human chefs worked with alarming efficiency. The queen recoiled. The Zelter were not just any creatures. They were death incarnate. Entire fleets had perished trying to contain a single adult. Civilizations had fallen when these things got loose. And yet, humans had somehow captured them, domesticated them, and were now eating them like common livestock. A shiver ran through her exoskeleton. One of her advisors, a jittery, multi-eyed diplomat named Vrukesh, stepped forward. His voice wavered. Asterisk, my queen, this cannot be possible. The Zelter species are the galaxy's most perfect killing machines. Their flesh is laced with neurotoxins that melt through bone. Their blood can dissolve starship plating. How? How are humans consuming them? Asterisk. The queen said nothing, unable to tear her gaze from the screen. She watched as a human family, 2 adults and a small child, approached the counter. The child bounced with excitement. Asterisk, Mom, I want the spicy Zelter nuggets. Asterisk. Asterisk. Okay, sweetie. Extra sauce. Asterisk. Asterisk, yes. Asterisk. The worker, a teenage human with a bored expression, lazily scooped deep-fried chunks of what was once the most terrifying creature in the universe into a small box. The child giggled, grabbing the food and stuffing a piece into their mouth without hesitation. The queen barely noticed Vrukesh staggering backward, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. Asterisk, they feed their offspring the flesh of Zelter like it is nothing. Asterisk. The queen finally turned, her voice barely above a whisper. Asterisk, we never should have come here. Asterisk. A heavy silence filled the chamber. The weight of realization pressed down on them. The galaxy had long feared the humans for their unpredictable nature, their willingness to fight even when the odds were insurmountable. But now, this was something else entirely. The humans did not just conquer threats. They consumed them. They did not cower before the most terrifying beasts in the universe. They deep-fried them. The queen trembled, watching as a new human advertisement flashed on the screen. Limited time offer. Try our flame-grilled Zelter ribs. Tender, juicy, galactic-grade heat. Vrukesh let out a horrified whisper. Asterisk, gods help us all. Asterisk. The queen could feel her twin hearts pounding against her ribbed exoskeleton, an ancient instinct screaming at her to flee, to leave this cursed planet and never return. But her duty held her still. She had come here to assess the human threat, to determine if they were merely an aggressive nuisance or a force that demanded the full might of the galactic dominion. Now, she had her answer. The humans were monsters. They did not simply defeat their enemies. They did not merely conquer. They assimilated. The Zelter were the pinnacle of evolutionary warfare. Creatures so deadly that the Dominion had deemed their homeworld a forbidden zone, allowing the species to remain undisturbed rather than risk total annihilation. And yet, these creatures now served as fast food for human children. The Queen's gaze snapped back to the screen. The image had shifted to a live feed inside the Galactic Grill's meat processing facility. A living Zelter, still thrashing, was suspended in thick titanium restraints. It screeched, its voice an ear-splitting mix of rage and agony, thrashing its acid-dripping claws. Claws that could shred through starship hulls against the metal. But the restraints did not bend. A human in a simple, grease-stained uniform approached, completely unfazed by the monster's fury. He adjusted his gloves and raised a butcher's knife. Asterisk, all right, big guy. Let's make this quick. Asterisk, the blade sank into the beast's flesh. The Zelter shrieked, its body convulsing as it struggled, but the human showed no fear, no hesitation, only efficiency. Vrukesh choked on his own breath. They butcher them while still alive. The Queen watched in cold horror as the human continued carving, slicing through the Zelter's armored hide as if it were nothing more than a slab of common livestock. The Zelter's legendary acidic blood dripped onto the reinforced flooring, hissing violently against the metal. The human worker barely even glanced at it, stepping over the melting patches as though this was routine. The camera panned to another worker holding a datapad. Asterisk, we're getting a 12% yield increase from the latest batch. The new seasoning penetrates the muscle fibers better when the meat is still fresh. Asterisk, good, the butcher replied. Asterisk, boss wants us rolling out the spicy Zelter wings by next quarter. Asterisk, a sharp clicking sound echoed in the Queen's throat. This was beyond conquest, beyond war. This was something more primal. They did not exterminate their enemies. They processed them. They did not fear the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. They perfected them for flavor. The realization spread through her like ice. If humans could do this to the Zelter, apex predators feared across the stars, then what chance did any species have against them? She turned to Vrukesh, her voice deathly quiet. Asterisk, we must leave. Now. Asterisk. But before they could issue the retreat order, a human turned toward the observation camera, and he smiled. The Queen froze. That human, the butcher, asterisk, asterisk, knew asterisk, asterisk they were watching. His gaze lingered on the observation camera, his expression one of mild amusement, as though the presence of an alien queen and her council was no more concerning than a routine inspection. His hands, still slick with the blood of the Zelter, rested lazily on the metal counter. He didn't seem alarmed. He didn't even seem surprised. Instead, he grinned. It wasn't a menacing grin, not the kind a predator gave before striking. No, this was worse. It was the grin of a creature so secure in its dominance that fear was irrelevant. The Queen felt her spines bristle, her tendrils curling inward, a deep, instinctual terror crawling up her exoskeleton. In all her years, across all the species she had encountered, nothing had ever looked at her like that. Not the warlords of the Kroth Dominion, not the biomechanical horrors of the Ithuen Swarm, not even the Zelter themselves, in all their nightmarish fury. Humans, it seemed, had transcended fear itself. My queen, Vrukesh whispered, his voice barely audible. Asterisk, he knows we are here. Asterisk, she didn't respond. She didn't need to. The human lifted one hand and waved at the camera, a casual flick of his wrist, as if greeting an old friend. Then, with the same unsettling nonchalance, he turned back to his work, pressing a button on the console. A hatch opened in the floor. Something moved beneath it. A new Zelter, even larger than the last, was raised into the room. It was a towering monstrosity, its eyes glowing with an almost supernatural hatred, its four muscular arms straining against the titanium bindings. Its mandibles snapped wildly, thick saliva dripping onto the floor, sizzling on contact. It was a terror of the void, an extinction-level creature in its prime. And yet, the humans had it in chains. The butcher didn't flinch. He didn't even hesitate. He merely cracked his neck, grabbed a fresh knife, and muttered, Asterisk, all right, let's do this one extra crispy. Asterisk, the Queen slammed the emergency signal on her console. Asterisk, we are leaving. Now. Asterisk, the ship's engines roared to life, the navigation AI responding to the sheer panic in her voice. The observation chamber shook as their vessel prepared for an immediate warp jump. She didn't care about protocol, didn't care about the consequences of an unscheduled retreat. They needed to leave this system before it was too late. As the ship ascended, breaking through the human planet's atmosphere, the Queen took one last glance at the screen. The Zelther was still thrashing, still fighting, but she already knew how this would end. The humans would win, and then they would eat it. The ship rocketed away from Earth, engines roaring as the Queen's trembling fingers clutched the control panel. Every instinct screamed at her to put as much distance as possible between them and that planet of horrors. Vrukesh slumped against the wall, his many eyes still wide with disbelief. Asterisk, they smiled at us, my Queen, as if we were the ones being studied, as if we were the prey. Asterisk, the Queen didn't respond. She couldn't. Her mind was still replaying the butcher's casual, almost bored expression as he prepared to carve into a creature that had devastated entire fleets. The Zelther were supposed to be unkillable, but the humans had not only killed them, they had made them delicious. The implications were staggering. Vrukesh, ever the scholar, finally found his voice. Asterisk, it is one thing to destroy a predator. It is another thing entirely to consume it. Asterisk, he turned to her, mandibles clicking anxiously. Asterisk, my Queen, if they can do this to the Zelther, what will they do to us? Asterisk, the Queen felt her stomach twist. That was the question, wasn't it? She had come to this backwater world to evaluate humanity, to determine if their expansion into galactic space was something the Dominion should be concerned about. She had found her answer. Humanity was not a race to be bargained with. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense, nor were they mindless destroyers. They were something far worse. They were adapters. They took what they feared, what threatened them, and turned it into something that served them. War? They made better weapons. Famine? They engineered better food. Predators? They made them into snacks. A shiver ran down her spine. What if, one day, they decided that the Dominion itself was next? The ship finally stabilized as it reached the void of space, leaving the cursed planet behind. The Queen exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Set course for the High Council, she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. Asterisk, they must hear of this immediately. Asterisk, Vrukesh hesitated. Asterisk, and what shall we tell them? Asterisk, she turned to him, her bioluminescent eyes burning with the weight of the revelation. Asterisk, we tell them the truth. Asterisk, he swallowed. Asterisk, which is? Asterisk, the Queen's voice was barely above a whisper. Asterisk, that we have been thinking about humans the wrong way. We thought they were merely another species, seeking survival. Asterisk, she turned to the viewport, staring at the distant blue of Earth. Asterisk, but humans don't just survive. They consume, they adapt, they devour. Asterisk, a heavy silence settled between them. Then, from the console, an alert flashed. Incoming transmission. The Queen's blood ran cold. The humans were calling them. The Queen's breath hitched as the transmission request pulsed ominously on the console. A message. From them. Vrukesh stiffened. My Queen, should we answer? The answer should have been obvious. No. Every fiber of her being screamed that they should cut all contact, erase their traces, and never acknowledge that they had even witnessed what transpired on that cursed planet. And yet, her trembling fingers hovered over the console. They had fled in terror. But deep down, she knew that humans weren't the type to just let things go. If they were reaching out, it wasn't a mistake. They knew. They had seen her watching, and that meant running wouldn't be enough. With a deep, reluctant breath, she pressed a command to accept. The screen flickered to life. There was no military officer, no threatening display of warships, no declaration of dominance. It was him, the butcher, still in his grease-stained uniform, still wiping Zelter blood from his gloved hands. His expression? Amused. "Hey there," he said casually. His voice was calm, friendly, even. The Queen didn't respond. She was too busy staring at the tiny paper cup he held in his other hand. He swirled its contents, a thick reddish-brown sauce, before dipping a crispy, golden-brown strip of meat into it. Her stomach churned. "Didn't mean to spook you folks," the human continued, taking a bite of the Zelter meat. He chewed thoughtfully, savoring it. "Figured we should, talk." A pit formed in the Queen's stomach. "You," she swallowed, trying to keep her voice steady. "You know who we are." The butcher chuckled, licking the sauce from his fingers. "Course we do. You think we wouldn't notice a Dominion scout ship hovering in orbit?" He shrugged. "We've been keeping tabs on you just like you've been keeping tabs on us." A sick realization dawned on her. The humans had known they were being watched, and yet they had let it happen. "Why are you contacting us?" she managed. The butcher's grin widened. "Because I saw your face when you watched us prep the Zelter. And let me guess," he pointed a greasy finger at her. "Now you're wondering if humans are the kind of folks you want to mess with." The Queen's mandibles clicked shut. She refused to acknowledge how correct he was. The butcher leaned closer to the screen, eyes gleaming with something ancient, something dangerous. "So, I got a question for you." He took another bite, chewing slowly before continuing. "What do you think happens when something bigger than the Zelter comes along?" The Queen felt her throat tighten. "You think we run?" He smirked. "Or do you think we put it on the menu?" The transmission cut. For the first time in her long life, the Queen felt true fear. The transmission cut, leaving only silence. The Queen sat frozen, her mind racing. "What do you think happens when something bigger than the Zelter comes along?" The words lingered, sinking deep into her core. She had spent centuries navigating interstellar conflicts, had seen entire species crumble under the weight of war. She had faced warlords, bioweapons, hive minds, but never had she encountered a species so utterly, casually dominant, not through sheer strength, not through numbers, through something far worse, through adaptation. Vrukesh's voice barely managed a whisper. "Asterisk, my queen, what do we do?" Asterisk. She opened her mandibles to respond, but found no words. What could they do? Warn the High Council? Declare humanity a threat? Would it even matter? The Dominion's entire philosophy was based on strategic superiority, on understanding an enemy's weaknesses and exploiting them. But how did you defeat an enemy that absorbed what it feared, that learned from its nightmares and made them into nourishment? A sudden alarm blared through the ship. Asterisk, proximity alert. Asterisk, a pilot screeched from the command deck. Asterisk, unidentified object approaching. Asterisk, the Queen's blood ran cold. Had they followed them? She turned sharply to the viewport, her breath catching in her throat. No human warships. No massive fleet. Just a small pod, a sleek, metallic capsule no larger than a cargo container, drifting toward them through the void. Intercepting transmission. A crew member called. Asterisk, it's a delivery beacon. Asterisk, a shudder ran through the Queen's body. Asterisk, put it through. Asterisk, the console flickered. A cheerful, pre-recorded voice played in smooth, practiced galactic standard. "Thank you for visiting Earth. As a gesture of goodwill, please enjoy this complimentary sample of our finest products. We at Galactic Grill pride ourselves on bringing bold, exciting flavors to the stars." The Queen's mandibles clicked in horror as the pod latched onto their airlock. Asterisk, they're boarding us? Asterisk, Vrukesh shrieked, scrambling backward. "No!" the Queen whispered, her pulse hammering in her chest. Asterisk, they sent us food. Asterisk, with a hiss, the pod's door slid open. A single crate sat inside, sealed with a bright red logo, the same logo from the human restaurant. Vrukesh stumbled forward, trembling hands activating a scanning device. His eyes flickered over the readings, and then he dropped the scanner as if it had burned him. Asterisk, what is it? Asterisk, the queen demanded. Vrukesh turned to her, his entire body trembling. His voice was barely a whisper. Asterisk, it's Zelther. Asterisk, the queen's tendrils coiled in horror. Vrukesh swallowed. Asterisk, fully processed. Cooked. And asterisk, he looked up, his expression unreadable. Asterisk, it's seasoned to our taste. Asterisk, silence hung heavy in the air. The humans had not just won. They were inviting them to eat. No one moved. The crate sat in the airlock like a dormant predator, its red logo practically mocking them. The queen's mind raced. This wasn't just a display of power. This was an invitation to taunt, a challenge. The humans were saying, Asterisk, we have mastered the monsters you fear. And now, we offer them to you on a plate, asterisk. Vrukesh took a shaky step backward. Asterisk, my queen, we should eject it. Right now. Purge it from the airlock and destroy all records of this. Asterisk, she wanted to agree. She wanted to burn that crate, to erase all traces of this nightmare and pretend none of it had ever happened. But she couldn't, because deep inside, beneath the terror, there was a deeper, more dangerous feeling stirring within her. Curiosity. Her fingers twitched. Her breath came shallow. What if they were wrong? What if this wasn't a threat? What if this was something even worse? An offer. She turned sharply. Asterisk, open it. Asterisk. Vrukesh whipped his head toward her. Asterisk, my queen, no. Asterisk. She held up a hand. Asterisk, open it. Asterisk. Vrukesh hesitated, then, with the slow, reluctant movements of a condemned soul, pressed a command into the console. The crate's seals hissed. The lid cracked open, and the smell hit them. A rich, intoxicating aroma. It was unlike anything she had ever encountered. A perfect balance of spice and smoke, of charred meat, and something deeper, something primordial. Her mandibles twitched. Her tendrils flexed. Every instinct screamed at her that this was wrong, that Zelter flesh was poison, that even its scent should bring death, not hunger. But hunger was exactly what she felt. Vrukesh took a trembling breath. Asterisk, it smells good. Asterisk. The queen swallowed, staring down at the contents of the crate. The humans had perfected it. Neatly arranged inside were golden, crispy Zelter wings, charred ribs dripping with sauce, and carefully cut portions of what the humans called steaks. Each piece was glistening, still warm, still inviting. The realization struck her like a plasma blast. This was the final stage of human dominance. Not conquest, not war, integration. They had taken the most terrifying predator in the galaxy and made it desirable. They had transformed fear into flavor. And now they were offering it to the Dominion, because they knew that once their enemies tasted what they had created, once they felt the pleasure consuming what once consumed them, there would be no going back. Her fingers trembled over the crate. One bite, that was all it would take. One bite, and the Dominion would never be the same again. She exhaled slowly and reached inside. Her fingers brushed against the warm, glazed surface of the meat. A shiver ran through her exoskeleton. The flesh of the Zelter, once feared across the stars, now sat ready in her grasp. Vrukesh made a strangled sound. Asterisk, my queen, please. Asterisk. She ignored him, lifting the piece slowly. She turned it in her hand, watching how the sauce glistened under the soft glow of the ship's interior lights. It was an absurd sight, something that should not exist, something unnatural. And yet, the aroma pulled at her. She brought it closer, mandibles twitching as the scent filled her senses. The tiniest fragment of logic still clung to her mind, whispering that this was wrong, that no Zelter had ever been consumed and lived to tell of it. And yet, she wanted to taste it. The moment her mandibles parted, Vrukesh lunged forward. His trembling hands grasped at her wrist. Asterisk, you don't understand. Asterisk's voice was frantic. Asterisk, this isn't just about food. This is a test. A trap. Asterisk. She met his wild gaze. Asterisk, don't you see? This is what they do. They take what is feared, what is untouchable, and they make it theirs if you eat this, if you so much as take one bite. We are lost. Asterisk, his grip tightened. Asterisk, this isn't a meal, my queen. This is submission. Asterisk. The queen hesitated. A silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. Her eyes flickered back to the meat in her hand. She thought of the humans, their planet, their grin. What do you think happens when something bigger than the Zelter comes along? Her grip tightened. Vrukesh's words were true. This was how they won. Not through war, not through conquest, but through hunger, a deep, primitive need, one that no species could resist. The moment she tasted it, the moment she indulged in their creation, she would no longer be an outsider looking in. She would be part of it. She would understand, and understanding was the end. Her mandibles snapped shut. With a slow, deliberate motion, she placed the meat back into the crate. Asterisk, seal it. Asterisk, her voice was steady, commanding. Vrukesh let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He slammed the crate shut, fingers flying over the console to lock it in containment. The queen stepped back, heart still pounding. We take this to the High Council, she ordered. Asterisk, they must see what we have seen. Asterisk, Vrukesh nodded, but his expression remained grim. Asterisk, and what do we tell them? Asterisk, the queen turned toward the viewport, staring at the vast, empty void between them and the home they thought was safe. Asterisk, that we are no longer at the top of the food chain. Asterisk, silence. Then a soft beep. Another incoming transmission. The humans were calling again. The queen hesitated before answering the transmission. She already knew what she would see. The screen flickered to life, and there he was. The human butcher, still in a stained uniform, still chewing absent-mindedly on a piece of Zelter meat. His eyes gleamed with amusement. Asterisk, did you try it? Asterisk, the queen's mandibles clicked shut. Asterisk, no. Asterisk, the butcher chuckled. Asterisk, smart. Most don't resist that long. Asterisk, she narrowed her gaze. Asterisk, why did you send it? Asterisk, he leaned forward, smirking. Asterisk, war's expensive, messy, but food? Food is universal. Everybody eats. Asterisk, the queen exhaled sharply. Asterisk, you're not just looking to conquer. You want to change us. Asterisk, the butcher winked. Asterisk, now you're getting it. Asterisk, her claws dug into the console. Asterisk, it won't work. Asterisk, he only shrugged, taking another bite. Asterisk, maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, everyone gets hungry. Asterisk, the transmission cut. For a long time, the queen simply stared at the blank screen. Vrukesh whispered, Asterisk, what do we do? Asterisk, the queen turned away. Asterisk, we warn them. You don't fight something that can turn you into dinner. Asterisk, the ship vanished into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth waited.